The government of Ghana has imposed numerous tax policies since the year 2021, with the latest addition being the Growth and Sustainability Levy Act of 2023, which replaces the National Fiscal Stabilization Levy Act. Now, the Growth and Sustainability Levy Act 2023 is to help Ghana raise revenue for the growth and fiscal sustainability of the country's economy. The government has estimated revenue of approximately 2.216 million Ghanaian cedis from the levy for the year 2023 alone. Other additional tax laws passed by the Parliament include the Excise Duty Amendment Act, which will impose a 20% tax on cigarettes and e-smoking devices, including beverages, spirits and wines, which is projected to rake in about 400 million Ghanaian cedis annually, and the Income Tax Amendment Act 2023, which will also generate about 1.2 billion Ghanaian cedis. Those are lots of money for the Ghanaian government, if you would ask me. And so this morning I'm being joined from Accra, Ghana, Paul Frimpong, who is an economist and executive director, Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So now it seems that the Ghanaian government is doing so much in terms of improving its revenue portfolio with these new tax initiatives that it is bringing on board to achieve its economic goals. But then what is the difference between the GSL and the NFSL?
Come again, I didn't get your question.
So we'd like to understand the difference between the Growth and Sustainability Levy as regards the NFSL.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think if in a nutshell, there isn't much difference between the National Fiscal Sustainability Levy and the new Growth and Sustainability Levy that has been introduced. In a way, it's just a rebranding and an addition in terms of the coverage of the companies or the industry that originally were under the NFSL. So that has been the difference. So you can see that the Growth and Sustainability Act, as was passed on the 31st of March, it's more about 90% of the NFSL that has been lifted and rebranded as a Growth and Sustainability Levy. And then, of course, they've added about two or so angles to which one of them is about the coverage in terms of the industry that are now going to be covered under the Growth and Sustainability Levy, which were not originally covered under the NFSL. Earlier. Again, the Growth and Sustainability Act also comes with a bit of an override of existing or all existing previous, contractual agreements between the governments of Ghana and certain sectors, especially in the upstream oil and gas industry, where, in this case, the new Growth and Sustainability Levy seeks to override any contractual agreements between in terms of existing agreement between the government of Ghana and the players in this sector. So for me, those are the two major things. Otherwise, it's almost the same. It's just a bit of rebranding and renaming, just to ensure that you're able to cover, bringing more industries and more companies to this Growth and Sustainability Levy.
All right, so what particular data did the government rely upon? What were the info stats that the Ghanaian government looked at that necessitated the need to come up with this improved kind of levy act that has been brought forward now? And what obtained before in terms of tax collection and generation before the introduction of this new levy act?
I wouldn't say there has been any form of improvement. I mean, I think what we are seeing is more of a government that is a bit showing some sign of desperation, and you cannot fault them because we all understand the situation that the country finds itself. Of course, the two major concerns has always been the case, put forward by the government in any of the new numerous taxes that has been introduced. And of course, I will also take a chance to even talk about the e-levy that was introduced because we're going to be facing similar situation with this Growth and Sustainability Levy, just that this one is targeting industry, and then we have the e-levy targeting almost everyone. Now, the reason I'm saying that there's a sign of desperation is that in recent times, we've seen numerous taxes and levies being introduced by the government, and they state these two major issues again: COVID-19 hitting the country in terms of revenue generation, of course, Russia-Ukraine crisis. Again, this is the same two major reasons that has been put forward by the government. In addition to that, they mentioned that they want to do something that can help us to secure the IMF bailout, $3 billion from the IMF just to come in. But then, of course, they want to show that you're ready to go the extra mile to generate internal revenue that generated locally to more like show confidence in the IMF that we are ready to go the extra mile to do more for ourselves even before your money comes in. So for me, I don't see any major thinking. I mean, it has always been the case that we face challenges. Everyone is feeling the challenges, of course. And the easiest way the government thinks is to introduce taxes and levies without considering the other side. And for me, that's always been a concern for me. If you look at the structure of how things are run, it is a two-way street. It's not just about money that you are making. Yes, you can focus on increasing how much you're making, but you need to look at how much you're spending as well. And that conversation has never happened in Ghana. In fact, in all these periods that we've seen, all these challenges we're facing, COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine crisis affecting the currency, and all of that, there has not been any conversation or any policy measures from the government regarding how much is also being spent by the government. And this, we are talking about the size of the government. What you're doing to ensure that you are cutting down on how much you're spending. That has never been part of the conversation. But the next step you hear is about how you're going to increase our revenue. No doubt, we want to do that. But you do that at a time when the recovery has been achieved, when businesses are able to move beyond the current, break-even or loss state that they find themselves. That is when you talk about introducing these kind of taxes and here and there, because you've had enough already, in these recent years, without any corresponding, action by the government in terms of how they are trying to show the efficiency, trying to close the loopholes, trying to ensure that, okay, this is our size of government. Now we think we cannot sustain it. We want to ensure that we cut down on some of the things that we do. But it's business as usual on how much we're spending. But then we want to go to places that there are no growth. I mean, industries are already struggling, business are already struggling. And now you just find the easiest way is to just go and tax even before, placing this levy before, profit before tax is what you're going to do now. So for me, it's a really, really difficult situation. We understand, we appreciate that, but I think we've not gotten it the right way in terms of how the government seeks to almost always introduce these new taxes.
So, Paul, are you saying that this new levy that the Ghanaian government is bringing on board is ill-timed? Because just as you said, there are so many economists and financial experts who are worried about if it will benefit the SMEs, the struggling businesses, the startups, and other businesses that are trying to cope with the pang of the pandemic and the after effects or aftershocks of the global challenges that we're faced with and the Russia-Ukraine crisis. So are you saying that the government is not putting some necessary considerations in place before coming up with this new improved Levy Act? And are you also saying that the government is not accountable enough in terms of what it generates, what it spends, and how it spends its income or its revenue?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So the government has not been accountable enough. We've not seen much prudence in terms of how we are spending in the country. We look at the size of government is the largest government that we've seen in the Fourth Republic. We saw the similar situation in the previous administration that raised a lot of concern about the size of the government in terms of ministries and agencies and departments and how much the government is spending in terms of recurrent expenditure. And why the reason why we are not even seeing the corresponding investment in capital expenditure, because the government almost spent everything paying salaries of employees and recurrent expenditure and all of that unnecessary, load on the size of government, which was one of the key things that we discussed in the previous administration. We are not seeing any change. In fact, we've actually seen even larger size than the one that was there previously. Again, it's ill-timed, and I can say that for a fact, because when you track the conversation that has come up following this tax that has been introduced, you can see that a lot of industry leaders have come up. First, there was no consultation whatsoever with these major industry players, especially those that fall into the 5% category, especially the banking sector, because already they are already paying almost 35% tax already as a corporate tax, and now you're introducing this levy before profit before tax without even proper consultation with them. An issue about airtime, it happened even when the government introduced the e-levy, which was one of the most unpopular tax, ever introduced in the Fourth Republic, the electronic levy, which was originally 1.5% and then it went to 5%. The government at the point realized that, of course, we were about engaging. That was the time that we started engaging the IMF a couple months ago, I think last quarter or so last year, when we started engaging the IMF and wanted to show that we are ready to go the extra mile. The government introduced e-levy. It was still time. The reason is that they positioned this e-levy as a form of inelastic kind of situation. So inelastic means that nothing changes whether the tax is introduced or not. So they assume that people will keep using this electronic means, mobile money payments or digital payments using their card or whatever, people will still use it, whether tax has been introduced or not. And guess what? They failed. In fact, they only met just about 10% of the target money that they wanted to raise from the e-levy. And this Growth and Sustainability Levy, we are saying they say they're going to generate about 2-point-something billion Ghana Cedis in 2023. I am very positive and I'm very sure that this will never be met, because there's already going to be a hit back from some of the industries in terms of, especially those that have original contractual agreement with the government that position them to be exempted, from certain levies or just to stabilize them. So these tax holidays and tax exemptions were introduced in the contract of some of these industries, especially those in the oil and gas sector, just to ensure that they are stabilized, within a period. And now you introduce a levy without proper consultation. Already, companies are already swamped in new taxes. And then again, you're also going to override existing contractual agreement that you have in terms of offering tax holidays and tax exemptions.
Okay.
So for me, this leads to two or many things. One is going to lead to more of international arbitration in terms of suits that is going to come. Companies are going to sue the government. I mean, for sure, I'm sure it's going to happen because, this is a breach of contract. And so we're going to see a lot of international arbitration issue coming against the government in terms of this Growth and Sustainability Levy. Again, we're going to be seeing what we call, de-investment, because then it becomes unbearable and now we cannot sustain. Are you going to tax us on the loss because already the cost of production is already high, and now you're introducing this, so it's going to lead to de-investment in certain sectors.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Of course, we know that government needs revenue, of course, to finance its expenditure and to be responsible for its citizens. But then they have to be creative enough not to choke businesses and not to choke individuals, and that is very important. But then we appreciate your presence, Paul. Thank you for joining us this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
The Growth and Sustainability Levy Act represents a significant milestone in Ghana's development journey and demonstrates that the country's commitments to achieving sustainable and inclusive economic growth is not far-fetched. Now, economists say it is a bold and necessary step towards building a more prosperous and equitable future for all Ghanaians. But the question is, at what cost? And that is what Paul had to talk about, saying that, of course, it is something that is laudable, but maybe it is ill-timed because it's not coming at a time, it is coming rather at a time where businesses are struggling to have a foothold on their operations and profits being made, even as these businesses struggle with the exacerbation in situations around global economic shocks and, of course, the Ukraine crisis, the COVID-19 lingering issue that has always been there but is trying to ease off. So that is another conversation that we get to look at. Maybe the Ghanaian government can look at other areas by which it can generate fund without choking these businesses and its citizens. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of Business Edge. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can head on to our website, www.newscentral.africa, and of course, download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store, because we have so many information going on there for your consumption. My name is Luke Onombanjo. At the top of the hour, we will bring you the news, so do not go away. Enjoy the rest of your day.